since I was born. It was back when I was very young. It seems to me it was the year before I first turned 1. There's something freezing at my heels that I don't care to know. And it may be that I'm reaching absolute zero. Wrote a poem, sent it all the way from home. Said I felt a little vacant, just like standing all alone. I sang a song that wasn't hardly long, but by the time the tune was done, a whole crowd had up and gone. And there's something freezing at my heels that I don't care to know. And it may be that I'm reaching absolute zero.
Am I on here? We're live, huh? You're listening to Avatar FM here at the CPDP panel, conference, obviously. Thank you for joining online, and also thank you for joining here inside of our small pop-up studio. We've been going today for already, 3, 4, 5 hours. It's 5, so we're heading to our second content block today. Thank you for the music DJ Froggy69, who is not here right now, but thank you very much. It was a really pleasure to listen to the set. Talking about pleasure, we can move over to our second content block for today. We have one content section now for 30 minutes and then another one for 30 minutes, and then we ease out. So let's move right over to my two guests here. I'm gonna go up the stage and introduce you two. Thank you for making it here. It's Anna Ornelas and Marie Kochsiek who joined me here on our broadcast. Well, I have quite the long introduction and bio. I might read parts of it. I might just read it down, just to give a little bit of context of your guys' background. Starting with Anna Ornelas. Anna is a pleasure activist, advocate, and content creator working at the intersection of politics, art, and sexual liberation. Her work centers clitoral knowledge, consent, and embodied autonomy as feminist and anti-capitalist practices, challenging the ways bodies, especially those of women, queer people, and Flinta communities, are disciplined, silenced, or commodified. Through workshops, public talks, audio erotica, and editorial work, Anna translates complex research on anatomy, desire, and intimacy into accessible, inclusive, and transformative experiences. Alongside her creative work, Anna is deeply engaged in advocacy and policy as advocacy officer for the Digital Intimacy Coalition and policy officer for digital rights with ESWA, the European Sex Workers' Rights Alliance. She works on holding big tech accountable for discriminatory content moderation, platform violence, and the silencing of sexual oppression. Thank you, Anna, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Marie is a technologist and sex educator with an interest in the intersection between technologies and societies, especially with respect to sexual health, digital rights, and community building. Marie is a feminist technologist and community builder. She is a part of the feminist tech space Heart of Code and co-founded DRIP, an open source offline period and fertility tracker that is feminist, gender inclusive, and science-based, built for everyone. With roots in sociology, Latin American studies, and software engineering, Marie is also known as Bloody BLOO, or 00, the Mary, on the internet. Weaves together tech, sexual health, and community. And today we're going to talk about digital intimacy and Femtech, both of which covers your background. And so basically, to start this off with, where many people online use the digital space for health and pleasure, we tend to overlook certain stigmatized themes that could help us understand how to strengthen the inclusive design of technology and prevent its misuse. Leveraging intimacy, sex education, pleasure, and feminist design practice as themes in the design and understanding of technology can impact how we use and think about the digital space. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later, but first of all, I wanted to ask you to, well, introduce how your work, both of your work, relate to intimacy, digital intimacy, and if you see any, well, if you know about or see overlaps in both of your areas, you also working it then as an advocate, both working it as activists, but also as a engineer and designer. So first, a little introduction and your relation to this topic.
Yeah, lots to think about. I'm going to try to summarize, because I guess, can I curse? Can I say the F word? What the F is digital intimacy, right? Like that's maybe a question that pops up in people's minds, but it's everything that has to do with our intimate lives that it's mediated through technology, and that's where kind of my work goes into, and that encompasses many things. So that can encompass sex tech and femtech and but it also encompasses sex work and porn and technology-facilitated gender-based violence and how we can prevent that. So nowadays, a lot of how we date, how we interact with our sexuality, how we live our desires is mediated through the online space, but we don't like to talk about it because that makes people uncomfortable. Just, in any room here, if I say porn, you can see everybody clench. Even though I think like most people are watching porn, so what's up with that? But yeah, I guess, did I answer your question in the sense that, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. It's very broad, but at the same time, I guess it makes sense because technology is very much present in our intimate lives.
Oh my God, such a great introduction. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, so it allows me to dive a little bit more, kind of specialize into this one specific, maybe digital safer space that our app would kind of maybe create, because you already did this kind of very great overview. Actually, when I was thinking about digital safer space, I didn't immediately think of a thing like a period tracking app, but usually how I started to get into tech was like with offline communities, kind of creating a quote unquote real space somewhere in Berlin and coming together, finding community and kind of looking at tech together and discussing tech and finding out what we like, what we don't like, and maybe trying to edit and remix and kind of also reject certain technologies. And then from this kind of in this context, the idea for Drip was born, and I think of course, with the time, I realized more and more that people really, they feel very. I think many people who don't have any other spaces where they could talk about about intimate, kind of any intimate question about their own personal life. And then an app pops up and you don't have to feel awkward of like talking to somebody personally. So it can happen that you're very kind of quickly going into kind of a deeply intimate kind of interaction with technology and with such apps. And you might be sharing data about your sex life, data that might kind of make it a bit like obvious that you had an abortion, or like very intimate data that usually people feel like much more private about, and they wouldn't talk even to a gynecologist about it, or to a partner maybe even. So I think it really opened up a space that of course hasn't been there before. And I think it's for me it's always super interesting how we can create a space where we also introduce safety, where we also introduce transparency, where we also introduce where we make it transparent where the limits of this app are, so that people also find their way out of it again.
Can I ask, when was that? Because I'm just curious, because I come from the opposite experience. So when were you gathering together in like which year, more or less?
Yeah, this is in 2016.
Wow.
10 years ago, yeah.
If I can talk a little bit about my personal experience with this, is I come from the other side, which is very much escaping the offline world and going online. So outing myself out a little bit, as a millennial, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and a queer woman, and had lots of questions around my sexuality, I went online, and that was my safe space. And there was a lot of forums and a lot of fan fiction and a lot of erotica with a lot of tentacle porn, and I found so much about myself, and I found so much community, right? And that's something that we're talking about extensively here, like how age-gating technologies can actually shut down communities for the people that need it the most. And that was certainly the case for me. So the online was a safe space, was a refuge in which I could be anonymous, in which I could be myself, in which I could question things around my sexuality, and even experience my sexuality through erotica in a safe way. But that was a very different internet, right? It was way less commodified, way less commercial. And the thing is that when we interact with these apps, even chatbots, even romantic companions, there is something so confessional about it, like in the sense of the confessionary of a church. You go and you speak into the void, of your innermost fantasy or doubts, and that feels safe. But the same way that in the confessionary there is someone else on the other side, there is someone else on the other side of these apps too. And when we're talking about big tech, usually this someone else is very interested in making money and selling your data, and that's where the danger kind of lies. And that's where there is a need for like rethinking these spaces in a way that gives people control back over their intimacy and how it's been mediated through technology.
I think that already gives a good perspective on how you would define within this new internet, and that's compared to the time you entered and had these communities, define the safeness online, and you're like taking back the data, being self being, how do you say, responsible for what you are responsible in that sense, but redesigning the space in that sense. But what I was wondering actually is, because you both chose, you have different backgrounds, you went into also advocating for it, and you chose the way to design this app, to how, what did you make, how did you get to the point to design this app in that way, to create, were you thinking about creating a safer way of the data, for example, being handled, and why?
I'm good friends with designers, so I can't call myself a designer. But I guess in a broader sense, of course, I was co-creating this app, so this I would accept as my role. I think it almost always felt a bit ridiculous to ask ourselves the question, why did we, create an app that is quote unquote so cool and just has the data just locally on your phone and very safe? Because we wanted to use a good app. It's not like we thought, oh, how can we be nice to our customers or to our users? So I think this kind of we were looking for alternatives for our own kind of period tracking experience, and I think it's also still a bit. We're not the only ones, but it's very rare that you find a group of people who want to create something for themselves and their communities, and of course also to share it with anyone who wants to use it. And the open source world allows that, even to participate in remix code. But so we had from the very beginning these 4 core values which never changed, and I also don't see them changing at any point in time in the future, which were, we wanted to create an app that is safe and secure. So there's no internet connection needed. There's no, also for us from a technical point of view, we don't have to be responsible or store it in any way. I can sleep well at night because there will be no data breach in our case, because there's no data stored outside of the device. And then trying to be more gender inclusive than other apps, trying to not assume that people are just using it for one reason or only one type of person is using it. And then to have the science base to not just predict ovulation, and we ourselves were not medical experts, so we really tried to see, okay, what is the scientific community saying about the status quo of fertility awareness for fertility tracking? And we were like, I don't know, other apps are doing wild predictions, but we don't see the science that kind of supports this. So yeah, and the transparency, of course, the open source software to make it kind of like everybody can look at it and can also prove if what I'm saying right now is actually true or not. Yeah.
And how did you notice that something is wrong with the other apps people were using already? Was that like, how did you know that? Well, how did you get to know in certain exploitation of data within this fertility tracking?
I think it definitely got bigger and bigger, the topic, over the past years. And at the beginning we were just like, this sounds like good. These values seem good. What was missing for us was kind of a good, reliable kind of design of the app, and kind of like a language that we would kind of, would like to interact with. We saw a lot of like flowery, very pinky, very overly quote unquote feminine apps, which really seemed to be like, I don't know, like some man thought they had to design an app for young girls. It really felt a bit ridiculous what we saw, and also that it wouldn't be taken seriously, the topic, right? It's not like I don't have anything against cute design. I also sometimes like have very like cute clothes or stuff. I'm very up for cuteness, but this part of like, hey, it's also about health, It's also about some people track it because they experience pain. and then the science that was lacking in most of them, and many were using like methods that are also called the Vatican roulette, for example, because it's a bit known as like very unreliable predictions of ovulation, and then people would just get, sometimes they try to get pregnant, they can't because they're relying on something that is actually not accurate, or some people get pregnant and they need to have an abortion then. So yeah, these were the main things, and then I think later there were more and more political kind of articles about the data of let's say the data problems from the other apps.
Mm-hmm. And Anna, how have you entered this space, then going also into, let's say, advocacy and trying to actually influence policy making, for example?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't want or thought that I was going to be doing any of this. Like, I just wanted to be a sex educator. I just wanted to talk to people about the clitoris. I just wanted people to have more pleasure, better orgasms. That's what I care about. Like, that's what I wanted to do. But then, I had to turn into a whole ass advocate because of the censorship that this kind of content faces online. Because I mean, there's so much to be said about safety, so I'll try to keep myself brief. But basically, I was creating content online that's about sex education, and I try really hard to be very responsible about the content that I create. So it's science-based, and it's inclusive, and it's something that people, I think that the sexuality is empowerment, right? And I really believe, like Audre Lorde said, that erotic is a source of power within ourselves, including political power. And I think that, giving people the tools to have a better sexuality is giving people the tools to liberate them. And the kind of censorship and the oppression there is online from the big platforms around sex education content, but also, profiles of sex workers, of content creators, is just so omnipresent, and it's so difficult that you kind of have to understand like how the DSA works, and you have to educate yourself in those topics. And I went into advocacy kind of by accident, because I was doing a workshop on the future of adult content creation, and we were thinking about how there was an opportunity for us to be at the table while the AI Act was being designed, because we weren't consulted. I mean as the adult industry, sex educators, sex workers, performers, etc. We weren't consulted when social media was being regulated. So then we had a real opportunity to do that. And I left that room, was like, I'm going to make this happen. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I created this initiative that's the Open Mind AI, which was pushing exactly for that, for a seat at the table while this regulation was being discussed. And that's how I entered the world of advocacy. And I realized that, always have been a very political person, actually, I really enjoy it. But the issue, there are so many issues with this, but I'll start with the AI Act Omnibus that was just passed now, on the issues of sexualized deepfakes, which the results of it are really depressing, because, for instance, they have a threshold that there's like you can't do non-consensual sexualized deepfakes unless it's, non-identifiable body parts of a person, which basically just says it's okay to scrape content from porn performers, right? And we tried to tell them that, but this was way too late in the process for them to change it. And the reason that happened is because they didn't listen to us when we sent the first open letter, when I was crossing into advocacy saying, we want a seat at the table, because they didn't want to engage. And we could have told them that from the get-go. So there is the discomfort around sexuality makes it so that there are so many gaps, and you have on one hand the censorship, the content suppression that doesn't allow people to access information about their own bodies, information that is denied to them in sex education, especially when we're talking about queer people, right? And gender expensive people and people that live their sexuality outside the heteronormative ways. And then on the other hand, we have, aggressive data harvesting and all of this surveillance around people's intimacy and the way that they use, these apps that kind of mediate intimacy through technology. So we have a space of excessive control, but also not control around what, how the data is being stored and what can be actually harvested and so on and so forth. So, and now what we're seeing is a move towards more policing, more control, more age gates, which, I don't believe that's going to be effective. But also what we need is to design a regulation that empowers people, because, we can't keep counting on people like Marie to come and say, well, actually, it shouldn't be okay for the data of a period tracking app like Flow happened in the US to be, selling this kind of data to data brokers that could, give it to the government, and they know that you've made an abortion. That shouldn't be possible. We shouldn't have to count on people, indie people that are like designing better solutions. We should design better legislations that have the people at the margins in mind, because when it's safer for the people at the margins, then it's safer for the people at the front. And to do that, they need to listen, to sex workers. They need to listen to young people and what they need. And yeah, that's my bit. Sorry.
So no, all good. Thank you very much for this. Another question, maybe also, I'm very sorry about looking at the time at this point, but looking on how to actually make a change with maybe including a community and inviting people to take part in this discussion and this discourse to create this together. How do you see a possibility in doing so within this community that you've maybe created or you're also a part of? Do you have any hints there, or also personal experiences on how this can actually help to let people know that these stigmatized topics help create an online world that might be more knowledgeable about what's actually going on?
I think this is a great space. I'm seeing more, the topic of sexuality being discussed around, especially digital rights. I think that's fantastic. But I think that, even in day-to-day lives, and I'm so happy to see so many young people here, it's like to normalize these conversations, ask your friends, what kind of porn do you watch? Like, what kind of which platforms do you use? Because there is a huge, from platform to platform, there is a lot of different ethics. It's like normalize this kind of conversations instead of being a source of shame. Because I think a lot of the issues happen because it's suppressed, because it happens in the shadow. So bring them to light. I think that would be my...
Yeah, I think in our case with the app, what I always kind of envision as the kind of a really beautiful kind of coexistence is like not have the app replace your conversation with the gynecologist or your conversations with friends and partners, but have it as like an additional kind of space where you store some information, where you maybe find out about something, but it doesn't take away the additional spaces where you have conversations about, what type of sex do I want to have? How can I stay healthy? How can I enjoy my sex life more? Or how can I have a period without pain or with less pain? I think that I can relate to what you said.
And community shared spaces, I think Reddit is a great example of that, because it's a total anonymous platform and it's a trusted source of advice, that people can go to. It's like having more spaces that, you can facilitate this community conversations online and offline.
I think thank you very much, both of you. I think that really transfers quite well to the also next topic we're going to talk about, the Fediverse. But first of all, I want to open up let's say 1 or 2 questions, if that's also fine for you. Is there anyone in the audience who has a question for the guests?
Or like a comment or an experience, like if it's like a shorter one.
No? All right. Well then, thank you very much for taking part in our program, and thank you for this talk. Yeah, we're going to move on here. We're still live on Avatar FM, and we're going to go over to our second topic. So thank you very much, Anna and Marie, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So we're going to play just a little bit of music and set up everything to get Konstantin and Jan on our stage. All right. Welcome to Avatar FM, live from the CPDP conference, third edition, second content block, and within the second content block, second topic block, where I can say hi to our next guests who will uncover and talk about the Fediverse, let's say the so-called Fediverse, because I've made this experience throughout the day today that seemingly a lot of people, although I didn't think so, honestly, don't really know what are we talking about when mentioning this. So I'm quite glad that I can have you, Jan Penfrat from EDRI, Konstantin Macher from the Digitale Gesellschaft, and hopefully I'm saying this right, Katarzyna?
Yes, that's correct.
Katarzyna Szymilewicz.
Thank you.
From the Panopticon Foundation here, and I'm just going to give it away to you. Enjoy. I'm going to make myself comfortable, and yeah, let's have a good talk.
Thank you very much. This is Jan, and we're effectively talking about the Fediverse, and we want to discuss what this new and upcoming kind of social media network is, what it does, how is it better or different from the commercial social media that many people are used to, and why we need a different social media at all. And I think here at CPDP that is something that's being widely discussed, all the troubles they were running through with commercial social media, and we're going to dive a little bit into this as well. So Konstantin, maybe I can throw the first question at you. What is the Fediverse, and how does this address the problems we're seeing on commercial social media?
Well, if I'm going to try to describe it in a bit of a talking point, I would say the Fediverse is a democratic innovation on how social media can work. It's a way of organizing our democratic discourse in a way that's not owned by big corporations, that can't be bought by Elon Musk today, but rather that's being organized by volunteers, by non-profits, by very active people around the world, and creating like a large social web that basically, think of email for social media, and it's easy to use. So you choose whatever kind of service that you like. Do you like a Twitter-like experience? Do you like an Instagram-like experience, or whatever? And then you join a community, and then you get started.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So I join a community. How does this work? I make an account. Does it work similarly than the social media that I already know?
Yeah, so I personally started with Mastodon, and there's an app. You go to any app store that you typically would use. You download it, you make an account like you would with any other social media, and then you can start posting, following people. So there, at first, it seems like any other social media, but the magic is what it can do on top of that.
Awesome. So Mastodon, I think, is something that many people may have heard. I just go to the App Store, download Mastodon. Is that the way that you've addressed this, Kasia, when you started using Mastodon for, like, in your work context with Panopticon Foundation?
Things at Panopticon are usually much more complicated and discursive than downloading an app. Of course not. For us, it's been strategic decision, I guess, to it usually is a strategic decision, or it always is, what social media and what communication channels we use, because it costs resources, and resources for us is everything we have. I mean, resources meaning our time, which is scarce because we are a tiny team, never more than 10, handling really huge issues on national level in Poland and on EU level here in Brussels, also collaborating with a number of networks. So time is scarce, and as everybody know, each channel of communication, if you want to do it professionally, requires almost like its own strategy. So the decision to go to Mastodon was a strategic one, came from our understanding that we need to we need to do ourselves what we preach. We need to put our money when our mouth is, so to say. We also discussed creating our own node, our own maintaining our own server at some point, but it's never been seen as alternative to other social media channels where we talk to the mainstream audience. So as I said, these are always strategic choices. When we went to Mastodon, it was about community building, about meeting our followers, people who has traveled with us a long way, because we are around for 17 years, which means we remember the times when social was sort of true, even in commercial world. Of course, it's no longer. Now we call those dominant platforms anti-social platforms. We don't call them media and we don't call them social. But we remember when, Facebook really didn't use all those toxic algorithms yet, and those people met us somewhere there. So one motivation was to travel with our followers, those who are tech savvy and seek alternatives where they are. Another element of the decision was to practice what we preach, and another is to be able to prove to policymakers, to prove to investors, to prove to various stakeholders with whom we engage that these things are possible, they are doable, and by practicing them we also learn what's missing. The main thing missing for me in Mastodon specifically is the ability to design, curate your own experience on the algorithmic level. I'm not saying it's easier somewhere else. I believe only Blue Sky offers space for that kind of experimentation. I also heard, and I would love to learn more, that there will be such experimentation on Mastodon soon. But this is the main thing that I believe keeps less tech-savvy and less determined human beings, let's never call them users again, on dominant platforms, because that's where they have algorithmic content curation, and many of them got used to this and assume that this is the internet. Internet is not the place where you go and search. Internet is not the place where you struggle with choosing content. Internet is the place where content is chasing you and is guessing your, as big tech calls it, needs and I would say vulnerabilities. But hey, how about shaping space in which we actually shape, we curate, self-curate, auto-curate content according to our real needs? That would be amazing. So that's the experience we would be looking for on Blue Sky when we finally get there. Right now, for us, it's Mastodon is the only experiment we consciously run. But again, I will repeat that because maybe that wasn't clear. We maintain other social media channels for other purposes, mainly for letting people who stayed on dominant platforms know that they have places to go. They should be helping us document the harms that are caused to human beings on dominant platforms. They should help us with their money, their attention, their support, fighting those dominant platforms, fixing whatever can be fixed there before we can build the internet where it's no longer relevant where you sit, which would be ideal because you can have curated, fair, personalized experience everywhere because there is interoperability. So that's our dream, that's our end goal, a situation in which nobody asks you, are you on Mastodon, are you on Blue Sky, are you still on Twitter? No, I'm on internet and I am where I need to be with algorithms of my choice.
Thank you so much. That sounds like you're making the strong call for these platforms to be compatible with each other, so it doesn't matter where you are. I also like the way you describe them as anti-social platforms, and you very nicely kind of outline how the toxic algorithms are making the online experience worse for people rather than better. Konstantin, can you say a little more about how the social networks on the Fediverse, like Mastodon, for example, how they differ in that space? How do they avoid the traps of toxic algorithms and the other kind of bad stuff that we see on commercial networks?
Yeah, I mean, also for expectation management, I mean, wherever human people interact with each other, there's going to be problems, right? So let's not pretend that the Fediverse is only like a sugar-coated version of human reality. But there are a lot of different ways in which the structures are organized, right? So for me, I don't want a curated timeline based on what the algorithm believes my interest to be. I want it to be a chronological timeline. And that works on Mastodon, but there's also other services on the Fediverse, such as Loops, for example, that's experimenting with that. That's more like short video based, and they're recommending me videos based on what I've seen before. So there are different ways, and the beauty of that is that you could choose a service based on your preferences. And I actually rediscovered the joy of social reading, something that right now is really just existing in these walled gardens, but in the Fediverse there's a service called Bookworm, and there you can just share the kind of books that you're reading, give reviews, give quotes, comments, etc. And other people from the Fediverse, whatever that is, whether it's Mastodon or so, can interact with that. So I think the first step in creating like a interesting and more healthy experience for users or people on the Fediverse is by letting them choose the kind of conditions under which they want to operate there. And that's the same applies for the kind of server that you choose. So when I'm using Mastodon, I can join different communities. I joined the EU-policy.social community, and that is, as the name already gives away, very much focused on people who care about EU policy. And there's a specific set of rules that people in this community are observing. And if I think those rules are good for me, and I want to play by those rules, then I choose that community. For example, if I say I want to be in a community where AI-generated content is tolerated, or I want one where that's not at all tolerated, different communities handle that differently. And the same applies to hate speech, the same applies to different forms of the way that you want to organize the social media. And I think that's one of the core principles. The other thing is that, given that it's a community-centered approach, it's not this anonymous platform where I believe I'm a consumer and there's the company that is tasked with keeping the rules there in a way that, I'm just there consuming, but people feel responsibility for the kind of community that they're part of. So I'm seeing more people there in Mastodon, on other types of Fedi services, where people are actually calling out bad behavior, where people are reporting illegal content, where maybe on Twitter you would just say, okay, that's just another troll.
Great, thank you. Let me just wrap this up for non-technical people, that I get this right. And also maybe to open it up to the audience, because there are a couple of people in the room. If you have any questions on the way, please do raise your hand. We can just take them and kind of bump them in the middle. We want to make sure that that nobody gets lost on the way, because some of these terminologies are technical, of course. So we're talking about the Fediverse that consists of a range of different social media services. Some of them, like Mastodon, look like Twitter or X or Blue Sky, and then some others like Bookworm that you mentioned, they are for reading, for sharing reading experience, more like Goodreads, I would say. And then again, others you mentioned, Loops, are more like a TikTok alternative. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looks a bit like that.
Yeah, so they're totally different types of social media services, but they have one thing in common, is which they're all compatible with each other. So I've got a Mastodon account, but I can follow anyone else on any of these other services without having to have an account there as well. So I can get videos and photos and book reading recommendations into my feed, even though the only thing I have is a Mastodon account. And then you can choose which community in those services you want to be part of. And as you said, each community has their own rules, moderation rules, basically. And full disclosure, I'm one of the volunteer moderators on EU-policy.social, which is a Mastodon community. If you want to try it out, go to EU-policy.social. It's free, it's volunteer run. You can just ask for an account, you'll get it, and then you can play around with how Mastodon works. It very much looks like Blue Sky or Twitter.
Wait, I'm an outsider. How do you go and ask for an account if you don't have one?
You go onto the website, eupolicy.social, you click on sign up, and then you choose a handle, like you did a Twitter handle, for example, or an Instagram handle. And then you give your email address, you choose a password, and you say, there's a little box that asks why you want an account. So we do this because we want to know our community. We're not an open sign-up server, otherwise we would have hundreds of thousands of users and the moderation would be really hard. We'd rather be a small community that we can actually manage. But no worries, if the folks that are here, you're the target audience of this community. So we'd be very happy to have you. So just to kind of outline that these different communities exist, and each of those communities can set their own moderation rules. And we'd hope that you like ours, of course.
And maybe I've seen some really cool communities out there. My favorite until this day is a chess social community from Germany. I assume they all really like chess. There's people that are organizing locally in their city. I am still waiting to see maybe some more political platforms as well, like EU Policy Social. But I think we can get to that in a moment when we ask, okay, how does that actually relate to what we're seeing here in Brussels these days, right?
Yeah. And at the same time, there are also communities that are around countries. So they're like country-specific or city-specific services. There's Bonn.social in the German city of Bonn, for example. There are the communities around journalism for reporters very specifically, or those for academics. And the important commonality of all of those is that they can speak to each other. Just because you join eupolicy.social to use Mastodon doesn't mean you're limited to people on eupolicy.social. You can speak to anybody else as well. And that makes it really, really nice and big and interesting. Also, none of this has advertising. I think that's another big difference maybe to mention as compared to the commercial services. There's no tracking, there's no advertising, there's no kind of, you're not being sold to anyone. And that, I think, is also kind of a defining difference.
But there will be algorithms or not? Because I keep hearing that, so maybe that's a good moment to learn, for me to learn what to expect.
Yeah.
If people want something else than chronological timeline, will they be able to experiment with that anytime soon on Mastodon?
Yeah, so the nice thing about the software that exists in the Fediverse, such as Mastodon, for example, is that it will implement functionality if people want it, right? Because it's not run by a company that has its own interests and then kind of puts it on people. It's run by people, for people, not for profit. And so if enough people want algorithms, then they will build algorithms. It's only a matter of time and maybe a matter of funding. And that brings me into kind of the second part of our conversation, which is how do we make sure that this kind of social media, let's call it social media public infrastructure for the people, can actually be maintained and exist? How do we fund this if we don't have advertising income? Konstantin, maybe you can go a little bit into what are the policies that we would need in Europe and in the rest of the world to make sure that this kind of public interest social media can live?
Well, there's a lot, but I'll maybe kickstart with one or two recommendations. I think for the beginning, it would be very reasonable for people who actually contribute for these kind of development of Fediverse infrastructure to be able to do so as non-profits. Because I believe this is like free and open source software. This is something that when you build it, everyone can use that, and I think that's in the interest of the public. So I believe that's something that should generally be possible. I think when it comes to state procurement, you have the opportunity for public libraries, you have the opportunities for cities to start hosting their own communities and make those available to users in their region. So I believe that's something where public funding should go to. I think you should invest a lot more money public money into educating people about the possibilities of that, right? One of the classic problems of good free and open source software out there is that no one knows about it. Very often, there are amazing software tools that are just hidden somewhere, and there's a mediocre proprietary tool somewhere that has a good advertising budget. So if you were to reverse that equation, then I think a lot of people would be actually willing and happy to use these platforms that work super well already, and then maybe also become co-contributors, because again, people there co-create, right? It's not consuming, it's choosing, okay, what kind of platform do I want this to be? Do I want this kind of recommendation algorithms to be part of it? Maybe I'm gonna make recommendations to the open source developers of Mastodon and say, hey, here's a set of criteria that I would find interesting. And if they see that there's a lot of interest in that direction, they might actually implement that. Or if they don't, a competitor might do so, and because it's interoperable, you don't have to choose between those two options. You can still remain on the Fediverse and design the experience that you want to have.
Yeah, I see there's a question in the audience. Maybe take this quickly.
Yeah, well, do you actually think that this is possible? Well, it seems like something we all want to happen, this interoperability. Yeah, I can come here. This like interoperability. But to like, it's really opposing the dreams of any big tech person sitting there and arguing against it, right? But how how to convince them about this to because it's a great way to get out of this lock-in where we're all kind of stuck in, right?
I think the EU has a lot of power to convince with their regulatory powers, and I think there's opportunities there.
Yeah, we don't ask them, we force them, that's for sure. We don't have so much time, do we? But yeah, for those who want to understand where are we with that, I can recommend listening to the recording of the panel we just held here at CPDP. Panopticon hosted a panel on fair, sovereign, truly personalized social media in Europe, a roadmap towards that, and we continuously argue that vertical interoperability or client-to-service interoperability, there are many ways of putting it in technical language, and I'm just a lawyer, so excuse my tech. This is the way that EU should build into its tech regulations. We tried that with DSA, with Digital Services Act. We almost got it in the Parliament, but we lost it in the final round. We tried it with the DMA, which is another powerful regulation, Digital Markets Act, now under revision. I believe that many voices, not just ours, certainly Every Voice and many others, said it is high time for the EU to pull that trigger and introduce social media interoperability through DMA. The Commission recently said no, it's too early. We don't understand why. Now the third big regulation is coming up called the Digital Fairness Act. And for me, what can be more fair than just opening those gates, right? Like let people choose their client. The Commission said, wait, interoperability? That sounds technical. That sounds like DG Connect. It sounds like different legislation. No, we don't do that. So today we kept convincing people from DG Justice responsible for that consumer legislation. No, it can be also in your domain, because what we are talking here is really giving choice, empowerment to consumers everywhere they go. You can apply the same logic to e-commerce platforms, to streaming services, to banks, to I don't know what, music services. It doesn't have to be about social media, but yes, on anti-social platforms, people get trapped not only because they got used to an application and they cannot easily transfer their profiles and their histories and their lives, but also because of addictive design, which has a lot to do with our compulsive use of those quasi-services, and the fact that advertisers keep feeding huge money into that doesn't help, because their logos, their branding, their invitation is everywhere. Back to money, I think we need both. That's my point. We need regulatory forcing of big players to open those gates for competition, but also for us consumers, and we need public money. Digital public infrastructure is a nice way to put it. There are vehicles, again, we could use, like MFF, which is the new multi-annual financial framework with huge money coming in for resilience, defense, all those trendy keywords. Why couldn't we sell in a legitimate way, not spinning it, but really explaining that what we are talking here is resilience of a society in the times of cognitive war, for example. And that kind of infrastructure, truly decentralized, truly resilient when it comes to disinfo, managed based on very different business models that cannot be easily gamed by trolls paid by Russia. This is a matter of public security. There is money for that. the big just, have to convince people on the top of the political ladder that this is in the package. Not only data centers, not only cloud, not only AI giga factories, but independent infrastructure for social media, including algorithms. And then we get serious money, and it's not only driven by volunteers, which is, incredible, and I admire that. But I also, I have lived long enough to remember that on a volunteer basis, you can run small projects. You can only go as far, right? At some point, to scale, you need serious funding, not coming from advertisers, of course. Today on the panel I mentioned, CEO and CFO of Mastodon said the same. We need funding, and it's nothing to apologize for. We are not asking money comparable to what's being spent and spoiled and wasted on AI, whatever, fridges and other fake services.
And if I may add, that's probably one of the most beautiful things in this whole story, is that while the folks at the European Commission refuse to be convinced that these opening of the big tech gates is necessary, average people are just building this stuff already today with surprisingly little effort and little money as compared to what big tech needs to build stuff. And that's why already today you can use your Mastodon account to follow people on Blue Sky, just because a random person thought, hey, let's build a bridge between the two. And the technology allows it. And so some of these cool things just already exist, but because people do that, despite politicians being slow about it.
I just want to add one more thing. Absolutely agree with everything you just said. But I will, unlikely for me, say something nice about the Commission. Vice President Virkkunen actually is on Mastodon already. And it's these high-profile people leading by example that are capable of breaking the network effect that's basically preventing all the journalists and all of the policymakers from leaving Twitter because they believe everyone is there, therefore I have to stay there. If more people with a high profile like her are taking presence in the Fediverse, that allows others to follow too. So I think that's a very good step. That's a step in the right direction. The European Commission has also started to feature Mastodon on their website prominently. I'm still waiting for the European Parliament and the Council to follow that example. It's fairly unusual for the European Parliament to be falling behind when it comes to democratizing things. So I believe they have something to catch up there.
I can only say that at Panopticon we convinced the president of the Polish Data Protection Office to create their official account on Mastodon, and they did. And we also wait for other public offices to follow, because that's a disaster that most of them sit on commercial closed platforms. And we really have to tell them that again and again, that this is just not decent in democracy.
When I hear this conversation, it strikes me to also be a really important matter of digital sovereignty. Everybody is whining about how dependent Europe is from US tech and Chinese tech and so on. And here we have it, a entire social network ecosystem that is completely independent of US big tech. And the only thing we need to do is use it.
Well, it's ending on a good note. Well, it's ending on a thoughtful note here, I think.
On the action point.
On the action point right there, that's right. Thank you so much for this great talk about the Fediverse. I hope everyone enjoyed and is, learned. I learned a lot, I must say. Already, I knew the term, right? And I was looking into it. But there's a lot to discuss, and I think there's hop on the train, get into the Fediverse. I showed some guys, there's a great website, I need to mention this. Join the Fediverse, I think it's called. Need to say this as well. I like it. It explains this really well again. So thank you very much. Is there any question in the audience right now? We're joined by some people. For the people listening online, should include in chat at some point. But if there are no? Okay. Well then, thank you.
Thank you.
And you are still listening to Avatar FM now. We dive into our last segment of the day. Before we close everything off, we'll head into some music for now, set everything up, and then we will welcome some members of the security distillery who will recap the day one of the CPDP conference with us here on Avatar FM. See you in a bit. like this. Hello, hello, hello. Listening to great jazz today, by the way. Thanks to people playing their music, including me. But you know,
much appreciated.
Thank you very much. That was the voice of
Flavio. Nice to meet you.
And next to Flavio, there is
Judita.
And you are from?
We are from
Italy, both of us, like many others here. No, but the Security Distillery.
Yes. The Security Distillery. Amazing. Just giving a short introduction. Well, you giving an introduction into the Security Distillery.
Yeah, sure.
Work, organization. We'll have, like, during the next days, this thing for the people listening online right now, just to know that we're going to ease out, ease in. We're going to do recaps of the day together with you. You'll be part here at the CPDP. Just enlighten us about your work. It's great that you are part of Avatar FM again, because I think you were there last year, right?
Flavio was. I was here from the distance.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have already met.
Amazing.
Last year.
Amazing. Sounds great. So go ahead, take the last minutes we have today on air on our broadcast. Thanks to Alto again today. Thank you, Alto. Shout out, GIMIC. And Security Distillery, go. Ease out for today.
Thank you. Right. Shall I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So we'll start off with a brief introduction of who we are. So we are a student-led think tank based at the University of Glasgow. And thank you, Talmo, again for the invitation this year. We like the story of the collaboration between the Security Distillery and the CPDP is actually a long story, I think.
Glorious collaboration.
Glorious collaboration of the Security Distillery and the CPDP. What we do right now is basically trying to deliver message related to security issues all over the world in a very easy and accessible way. And as I was saying, we are a student-led think tank, so we are all part of the same master program that is called IMSIS, so the International Master in Security, Intelligence and Strategic Studies. So it's the longest name ever. But
very fancy.
Yeah, very fancy. Looks very fancy. And yes, so again, this year we are here, as you were saying, to kind of do a daily recap with you. But of course, we are enjoying the conference and trying to foster the conference itself on our social media. And yeah, I guess that's all.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having us again. It's really nice to be back here. I had the pleasure of attending last year as well. It was super insightful, super interesting, really. And also make a lot of great connection whenever I come here, which is invaluable, of course. And it's a crazy opportunity for students to be here like this. And we're very proud to be your media partners. And but let's talk about our day a little bit.
Yeah, let's do
it. What impressed you today? What is honorable mentions? Let's say.
So as you were saying, we were here last year as the Security Distillery, but I was not here in person, even though the topic of the conference is actually my topic of greatest interest. So I'm really happy to have been able to attend this year. And I need to...
We can also take a moment. Why of great interest? What do you do besides the Security Distillery?
Okay, so, well, besides the master, I am part of another organization, actually, based in Brussels as well. It's called Women for Cyber. And they're mainly about fostering women position within the cyber sector. And I need to say that regarding this year conference here at the CPDP, I was really amazed by the gender balance. I need to underline this aspect that I noticed as I arrived here and as I attended the first panels this morning, and it's something that I really appreciated. So I think we really need to highlight this.
Yeah, remarkably diverse panels. Very good work on that regard.
Just yesterday we talked about the Women in Cyber program with another person that is joining tomorrow. Her name is Mia.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, but I was warned about her presence here.
Okay, great.
She's here.
I will dig into that.
Well, yeah, she's gonna talk with Laurie Rosset tomorrow at 5:30 or 5, when the second content blot about spyware.
Okay, yeah.
So you might have heard
All right.
of her.
Yes, sure. I will
Short little
dig into
teaser
that a
about
bit
what's
more.
happening tomorrow on our program as well.
Yes, of course.
Yes, but what about today?
But yes, about today, I think that I was really amazed by one of the first panels that I attended. That was about the relationship with the between law enforcement and data protection. So it was one of the morning panels. The moderator was from the European Agency for Fundamental Rights, and I think that was what was really insightful was actually how all the speakers who came from different backgrounds. So we had one from NGO, one from the European Commission, so very diverse background. I think that was also valuable aspect of the panel itself, and they basically tried to analyze and to highlight how of great importance is the legal framework governing the use of personal data, and how basically law enforcement is nowadays deeply connected to it's mainly data-driven, and how nowadays we cannot go back anymore. Like, we cannot shift from this data-driven approach, but how is, because of that, fundamental to be clear regarding some aspects regarding, regulations, and they mainly focus on the lead. So
I guess this raises the use of public, let's say, authorities of the data raises quite a few issues, no?
Yeah, exactly. So of course they didn't highlight some specific case, let's say, but in general I would say it was a really interesting discussion, as well as the second one I attended this morning that was regarding the black box, that was more focused on the difficulties that nowadays researchers are facing in accessing social platform data, which is one thing that unfortunately I can absolutely relate to, because we are right now writing our thesis dissertation, and yes,
first-hand experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of first-time experience. Of course, we are not researcher and we are not academics, but I think it's kind of like we can understand the struggle. So I would say that was also a very interesting panel. And also one thing, the point of view that we had during that second panel were from very diverse geographical areas. So we had people from the US, people from Europe. So we also had this kind of different point of views and equivalent point of views. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what about you? Because we attended different panels, so
we tried to scatter around the different conference halls. But for me,
did you do it because of different interests, or because you wanted to be prepared for tonight?
Honestly, a bit of both. A bit of both.
50-50. Yeah.
Also, we have some duties. We have to report to Birte here. So
Of course. Okay,
very diligent.
Well, it's a privilege for us that you attended that many panels. I mean,
yeah. For me as well. No, but for me, I would say I had two panels which were a bit more on the social side of the digital aspects that we talk so much. So actually talking about people more than laws and numbers. And it was really interesting to me. Since you started with the first one of the day, I start with the last one, which was about gendered digital labor. It was really interesting. It was on this. It started, let's say, from this new EU directive on platform workers' rights, which then extend to the different states, and mainly applies for riders in companies such as Just Eat or Foodora, but they were also showing application for domestic workers, which are especially critical since they are usually migrants and often undocumented. So it's a really undeclared workforce, let's say. And recognizing their rights is a priority. And the third category they mentioned was the online sex workers, actually, which are even more exposed, as many countries don't recognize them as a workforce. So they don't have the statute of worker for the national law. So yeah, that is, it was very, I don't know, depressing sometimes, but not always. I have to say the moderator was inspiring hope in the hearts of the audience. So
yeah, this is something I also noticed, like within the panels in general.
I think
trying to
luckily, yeah. But yeah, so this was the first panel, let's say, and the other one that I wanted to talk about. It was actually a book presentation about the chilling effects by Jonathan Penny. And so he used this concept of chilling effects, which apparently stems from the US Supreme Court. It's a way they used to ban the McCarthy period laws, because they said that they had chilling effects, and it became like a legal terminology that it's used also in other countries afterwards. But he developed this term in applying it to the modern cyber or internet interactions that we have, let's say. And he used this chilling effect to define the sense of self-censorship that we have whenever we have an opinion that is not conforming to the official one that the government or the community or the medias are trying to impose, let's say, on everyone. So it was very interesting. It was speaking about these mechanism of imposition of the thought and opinions and the suppression of dissent. And the chilling part for the audience, the third chilling effect, is the fact that this is all legal. So it was actually raising flags for legislators, I hope. Because we often talk about abuses, about regulations, about how to prevent stuff, but this is all legal. So, yeah, pretty tough.
Yeah. But very interesting.
Yeah.
In general, I would say.
Was that in the Culture Club?
Yeah, it was in
Upstairs.
the cinema room.
We've barely covered this today throughout the day, mentioning that there's actually a quite cool cinema room.
Super
here,
cool.
Where, well, if there's someone online who's still coming tomorrow or here available, this is quite the cool experience in that sense. But I think it's also very well curated. And has a very
It's definitely the most comfortable of the rooms.
Most
It
comfortable.
has huge armchairs, and but bring a jacket because it's a bit cold.
Yeah, but amazing program, and also book presentations, and we have short movies there, right? Short films that are also being discussed. So I think it's quite well, from my perspective here, but I'm quite integrated. Also maybe giving the question to you, what do you think about having the opportunity also to go there rather than attending panels all day, right? Where you can kind of maybe zoom out, have a different experience, also dive into other perspectives that you normally wouldn't encounter also within your masters.
Yeah. I remember also from last year, I really appreciated this opportunity to diversify the day, let's say. You have mainly here the big room with huge panels, but also you have some smaller ones, other ones where there's workshops. I remember
also quite areas if you want to.
Yeah, a lot of different topics discussed in each, but also in different ways. Like a workshop is super interactive, so you're not just listening. And then there's the Culture Club, as you were saying, and I think it's really interesting because there's always the author of the book that's being presented, which is always super informed about the topic, and all the guests, of course, are super competent. So they try to criticize his work. So you see also a bit of academia back and forth in that sense.
I will check it out. You made me curious.
I remember last year
I didn't have the occasion today. But
I want to make a special mention. Last year there was this book on the war on Gaza. It was called AI Sacred Violence, about the whole doctrines of the Israeli military as well. It was very chilling again, but it's always insightful when you have an opportunity to talk to a book author. I think it's different than the regular.
You really understand
panel.
the perspective of the the book.
Amazing, guys. Well, we're coming to an end for today. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention about today? Any wrap-up thoughts?
I think
we got late to lunch. Maybe be quicker tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
We'll
a reminder. That's a reminder for everyone to take the eating seriously, the lunchtime, and all
There's some serious competition
and the hydration. Okay, there's free coffee, yes, but don't forget to take
There
some
is
water
also
every now
something
and then.
Of course.
There's water
You
stations.
have to stay on top of the situation.
Exactly. This is a service announcement. You can get also water, not only coffee.
Yeah.
But
No,
amazing.
but jokes aside, the venue is always super beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. The staff super welcoming, always ready to help. Also, in the face of unexpected events, like today, a couch broke. The speaker was. So
Really
but
amazing.
immediate fix. Super efficient staff. So things that happen.
Amazing.
You know?
Yeah.
The show
Amazing.
must go on, as they say.
Exactly, and I think that's a good way to ease out for today. Show must go on, but
show
it's
must go
over
on,
for now. But we'll be back tomorrow at 12. I wonder, are you guys coming tomorrow as well at 12 in the morning?
I think
or
we'll
no?
see tomorrow.
Yeah,
We'll see tomorrow.
We
We'll be
remain with
spontaneous
that.
about
Yeah,
it,
it will
right?
be spontaneous in
Okay.
case.
Either
So we're-
12 or 6, I think.
So exactly. So we're gonna have a
Exactly.
little recap or a mid-time recap with the security distillery
At some
again.
point,
At some
we'll
point during
see
the
each
day
other
tomorrow.
again.
Yes. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
See
Thank you.
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Thank
Always
you,
happy to be
everyone
here.
and thank you, people online who have been listening today, who might listen to the archive. Shout out to the people who listen in maybe 10 years. Who knows? Huh? But it was an amazing day. Thank you. Full of interesting, insightful talks, and also amazing music that we listened to. So for now,
Amazing.
ciao, bye bye, and enjoy the rest of the conference and the day.